Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we got another news and rumor video to discuss. We've got some massive things to talk about. There's been a massive signing in the New York area, we'll get to that. There's been a couple of injury updates. We've got a waiver update to talk about, plus some trade rumors involving the Rangers, the Islanders, and the Nashville Predators. We'll go to all that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Intent Hockey channel. Now before we begin this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe below. Thank you all for your support. We'd never be able to do without you guys, so if you haven't already, don't forget the subscribe button down below. Don't forget to comment down in the comment section below so we can all discuss today's video. So in today's video, we're going to start off by discussing a major signing that happened over the weekend, and it was an interesting one. I think it was yesterday that we saw Igor Shesterkin finally sign his new contract. Now it was an interesting one. We've heard from a lot of sources that Shesterkin wanted to not only be the highest paid goaltender in the NHL, but also wanted to be the highest paid Ranger on the team. So there's a lot of contention as to whether the Rangers should pony up that sort of an asking price, or if they should try and keep him under like $10.5–11 million. Well, they have come to terms on a new deal. Shesterkin signs an 8-year extension with the New York Rangers with an AAV of $11.5 million, surpassing Carey Price's $10.5 million AAV for becoming the new highest paid goaltender in the NHL, and also surpassing Panarin's AAV to become the highest paid Ranger. So it's an interesting sign there for the Rangers. Now, Shesterkin has been one of the best, if not the best goaltender in the NHL over the past couple of years, so to sign him was a massive must for that Rangers team for them to remain competitive. Shesterkin's been fantastic. He's 28 years old, so this deal will run until he's 37. So he's going to be under contract for quite a bit of time, and $11.5 million is quite a bit of money, but Shesterkin I think is completely worth it. Shesterkin last year had a .913 save percentage and 2.58 GAA in 55 games, which is actually pretty low for him, given the fact he's at a .913 and a 2.58, which is low for him, is quite surprising. The year before that, he had a .916 save percentage. The year before that, .935. In each of the last 3 seasons, he's had at least 50+ games started for the Rangers. So far this year, started 19 of the Rangers games, picking up a 2.99 GAA and 908 save percentage. He hasn't looked overly good this year, but the Rangers haven't been an overly great team in front of him, so can't really blame Shesterkin. He's still a elite level goaltender, one of the best goaltenders in the NHL. So to see him sign is really great news there for the Rangers. There was a lot of speculation as if he would sign an extension in season or not, or if the Rangers could potentially move him, but Shesterkin signed for a long period of time now. He signed 8 years, $11.5 million, and he will remain with the Rangers for the foreseeable future. So that's a fantastic signing there for the Rangers after they moved Jacob Trouba over the weekend. So a really good pickup there for the Rangers. They signed Shesterkin. That was the only signing we have from our past couple days. Next, going over to a couple of injury updates. So with the injury updates, we'll start with the Islanders. Semyon Varlamov missed Thursday's game with a lower body injury in his day-to-day, so it's a bad blow there for the Islanders as they lost their backup goaltender for the next little while. Well, Adam Pelech, who's missed time so far, I think it's been a couple of weeks now with a broken jaw, started skiing in a non-contact jersey, which is fantastic news there for the Islanders, but he's still out with the injury. So hopefully Pelech and Varlamov can return not just in the future, but bad to see those guys out with injuries. Paul returned to game action for the Tampa Bay Lightning after missing 6 games with undisclosed injury, so that was a bad blow there for the Bulls, but good to see their middle 6 forward come back. Nikita Kucherov missed Thursday's game action with undisclosed injury, so he's missed back-to-back games now. That's bad news there for Tampa to see Kucherov out. And Mitchell Chaffee also missed Thursday's game action with undisclosed injury in his day-to-day. So great news to see Paul back. That's fantastic news, but to see Chaffee and Kucherov both missed Thursday's game was a really bad blow there for the Bulls, so hopefully those guys are going to be back and not just in future. Danny Hakanpää underwent a minor knee procedure and he's out for a foreseeable future, so that's a bad blow there for the Leafs. Hakanpää dealt with some knee injuries in the offseason, so hopefully he won't miss too much time. That's a bad blow there for the Leafs. Jake McCabe missed his 2nd straight game on Friday with an upper body injury and is still out day-to-day, so hopefully McCabe can come back and not just in the future for the Leafs. Bobby McMann will miss at least the next few games for the Leafs with an upper body injury. He will probably not be back until early next week at the earliest, so it's a bad blow there for the Leafs to see McMahon still out. So horrible news there to see Hakanpää, McCabe, and McMahon still out there for the Leafs. Detroit's Patrick Kane returned to game action on Thursday after being activated off of injury reserve after missing 5 games with an upper body injury. So really great news there to see Patrick Kane get back for Detroit. Philip Hronek was placed on long-term injury reserve and will be out for the next 8 weeks for the Vancouver Canucks. So we've already talked about this. He's going to be out the next 2 months. So bad blow there for the Canucks. Well, Thatcher Demko was able to back up in the Vancouver Canucks' most recent game on Friday. That was fantastic to see. Demko was actually off of injury reserve and backed up Lankinen on Friday. So if Lankinen had suffered an injury or wasn't doing overly well, Demko could have gotten his first game action of the season. So really great news to see Demko almost return and get back on the roster. So really great stuff there. Zach Hyman returned to game action on Thursday after missing about 5 games with undisclosed injuries. So that's really great news there, as Hyman's a really good goal scorer. So great news for the Oilers to have him back in the lineup. Well, for Vic Arvidsson, he has an undisclosed injury and is now going to be out indefinitely. He's already missed a handful of games over the past little while, over the past couple of weeks, and now he's going to be out indefinitely. So that's a horrible blow there for the Oilers, as their offseason acquisition is once again dealing with injuries. Buffalo's Rasmus Dahlin missed Thursday's game due to an injury, so hopefully he won't miss too much time, but that's a bad blow there for the Sabres. Matthias Samuelsson should return soon from his lower body injury, as he's practicing in a non-contact jersey, so Samuelsson could be nearing a return for Buffalo. While Jordan Greenway was also practicing in a non-contact jersey and could also return soon. So good to see Greenway and Samuelsson on the brink of returns. Bad news to see Dahlin miss Thursday's game due to an injury. When we go over to Nashville, Ryan O'Reilly missed Thursday's game with a lower body injury and is out week to week, so Preds missed their second line center for the next couple of weeks. Jeremy Lauzon was placed in injury reserve with a lower body injury and is currently out for the next little while, so bad blow there for the Preds. While Michael McCarron was activated off of injury reserve and returned to game action on Thursday. So really great news there for the Predators to see McCarron get back, but bad news to see Lauzon and O'Reilly out with injuries. Kane Gourde missed Thursday's game with an illness. Shouldn't miss too much time, but there's a bad blow there for the Habs. Philadelphia's Nick Deslauriers was placed in IR with upper body injury, and hopefully he'll return not just in future. Well, Jamie Drysdale, who has an upper body injury, and Sam Ersson with a lower body injury, both are now only day-to-day. They've been downgraded from their previous status, and they worked their way back from injuries and could return hopefully not just in future. So good to see Ersson and Drysdale nearing returns, but bad news to see Deslauriers out with an injury. New Jersey's Tomas Tatar returned to game action on Friday after missing 2 games with a lower body injury, so that's really great news there to see Tatar back for the Devils. Joel Eriksson Ek was placed on injury reserve and is out week to week with a lower body injury, so it's a horrible blow there for the Wild to see Ek be placed on injury reserve now, and he's still going to miss the next couple of weeks. And Zegras was placed on injury reserve with a lower body injury and missed Friday's game after suffering the injury back on Wednesday, so hopefully it's not going to be an overly long injury, but that's a bad blow there for the Ducks. Brock McGinn was activated off of injury reserve and got back into game action on Friday, so really great to see McGinn back, but a bad blow there to see Zegras out for the Ducks. Mark Stone returned to game action on Friday and was activated off of injury reserve after missing 14 games with a muscle pull. So great news there for the Knights as they get their captain back. San Jose's Will Smith will be a game time decision for Saturday's game with upper body injury, so hopefully he'll be able to get back into game action for the Sharks. Well, Yanni Gourde missed Friday's game with undisclosed injury, and hopefully he'll return on the weekend, but that's a bad blow there for the Kraken. So lots of intriguing injury updates in our past couple of days. Bad news to see guys like Gourde, Zegras, O'Reilly, and Dahlin all out due to injuries, and hopefully they're not going to be out for an overly long period of time. But good news to see guys like Hyman, Stone, Kane, and Paul all return from game action. So really great stuff there as those guys all returned. We do have one quick waiver update to discuss here. It was an interesting one. Back over on Friday, we saw Brendan Lemieux be placed on unconditional waivers for purpose of contract termination. Lemieux was earlier sent down on waivers by the Carolina Hurricanes after he didn't make the roster out of training camp, and he's basically been in the AHL the entire season, so he didn't really see that he had a long-term fit with Carolina, and the Hurricanes granted him his leave, so they placed him on unconditional waivers to terminate his contract, and on Saturday that indeed happened. So Lemieux's contract has been terminated by the Carolina Hurricanes, so it'll be interesting to see where Lemieux goes there. There's been some rumblings to go over to Europe, so interesting note there. But Brendan Lemieux, who had been with the Hurricanes the past couple of seasons, didn't make the roster this year, has been mostly in the AHL, and he winds up being placed on unconditional waivers for purpose of contract termination, has contract terminated, and should probably go overseas now. So interesting waiver update, but those are all the waiver updates from our past couple of days. And lastly, going over to a couple of trade rumors. Now, when it comes to trade rumors, we do have a couple of things to talk about in this video. So we're going to start off with Nashville Predators. Elliotte Friedman recently did a 32 Thoughts blog post talking about the Predators, talking about what's some of the moves that they could potentially do and what sort of players could potentially be on the block. And he says that Jeremy Jeremy Lauzon is one player who is definitely not on the block for the Nashville Predators. The Predators seem to really value Lauzon and his role on the team. Lauzon is a third pair defenseman. He's a really good, hard-hitting, physical style defenseman. He's got this year plus next year left on his contract at $2 million. So he's a really cost-controlled third pair defenseman. A lot of teams would have some major interest in him, especially given the fact he's that sort of playoff-style defenseman. But even though the Predators look like they're probably not going to make the playoffs this year and maybe even heading towards a rebuild, they still value Lauzon a lot. And they, at this point in time, had zero interest in moving him. So I could see if the right deal comes along and it blows the Predators away, they would consider moving Lauzon. But it just seems like at this point in time, according to Elliotte Friedman, the Preds have no interest in moving off of Lauzon, and they really do value him. So we're gonna have to wait and see on that, but we'll have to keep our eye on the Predators, as there's very likely going to be some moves coming out of them, and not just in the future, but don't expect Lauzon to be on that list, as the Predators value him and want to keep him. When it comes to the New York Islanders, we heard this from Pierre LeBrun on the Insider Trading video. Pierre LeBrun was talking about the New York Islanders and said that Brock Nelson's going to be a name to watch out for if the Islanders keep on slipping. They're a game under 500. They were the third last team to reach the 10-win mark. They're the king of loser points, which is why they're so high in the standings, but they've lost, I think, like 18 of their 28 games. They're not doing overly well this year, and if they start to fall off a little bit further, there's a very likely chance they'll be sellers at this year's trade deadline. A name that a lot of people have been speculating as a potential trade candidate for the Islanders is Nelson. Brock Nelson's been a fantastic, consistent 30-goal scorer. He can help a ton of teams in the second-line center position who are looking for playoff help. So there's a very likely chance Nelson gets moved. Two teams who Pierre LeBrun links to Nelson as potential guys who would try and target Nelson come the trade deadline would be the Dallas Stars and Minnesota Wild. Both teams could definitely use a solid second-line center. We know the Wild don't have too much cap space. Neither do the Stars, but they might have a little bit more than the Wild do. Both teams could really value some center help. For the Stars, we know we just heard Seguin's probably going to miss the rest of the regular season, unless he could maybe return for the last couple weeks of the regular season, or he's probably going to be out until some point in the playoffs. So with Seguin out and a hole at the center position, I could definitely see Dallas try and target a guy like Brock Nelson. When it comes to Minnesota, you can also see them try and target him. Like, they could definitely use a solid second line center. They have Eriksson Ek, they have Rossi, they have a couple of other guys who can play center, but they don't have a real solid, legit second line center. So if they could get someone like a Brock Nelson, it would make some sense. I think there would be a lot of other teams who would have some interest in Brock Nelson too, but Pierre LeBrun does link Dallas and Minnesota's potential landing spots for Nelson. So we're going to have to wait and see on that, but very likely chance that the Islanders continue to falter, and if that continues to happen, expect Nelson to be a trade candidate before a trade deadline, and expect Dallas and Minnesota to be in the market for adding a top 6 center like a Nelson. So we'll have to wait and see on that. And lastly, going over to New York Rangers, we have 3 things to talk about when it comes to the New York Rangers. First, I want to talk about one outlandish claim that I don't think will ever come to fruition, and that is that Larry Brooks put out that the New York Rangers were trying to make a heavy pitch to try and acquire Brady Tkachuk from Ottawa. Now, Tkachuk's been in the rumor mill for a little bit of time now. There was speculation about him potentially going to New Jersey in the offseason. I saw some speculation last year too. So Tkachuk seems to always be coming up in the trade rumor mill, but it doesn't seem like he's going to get moved. The Sens are steadfast at having Tkachuk remain in Ottawa. I highly doubt Tkachuk's going to get moved. Tkachuk is the heart and soul of that Senators team. He's their captain, I think. So I don't think Tkachuk's going to get moved by the Senators unless he absolutely requests the trade. But I think Tkachuk's going to stay in Ottawa. I highly doubt the Rangers are going to have that sort of an asking price. You're probably looking at like 2 first-round picks, a really top-level prospect, and a really solid-level NHL player in order to just start talking about moving Brady Tkachuk, and I don't think the Rangers would want to do that. So Tkachuk's a really good player. I don't think he's going to be traded anytime soon by Ottawa, but I just think that Tkachuk keeping on coming up in trade rumors is just quite laughable, if I'm being honest. So I don't think Tkachuk's getting moved, but there was a claim out there by Larry Brooks saying that the Rangers were making some strong offer to try and acquire Brady Tkachuk from the Senators, so we'll have to wait and see on that. When it comes to the other 2 things we're talking about with the New York Rangers, one is about Mika Zibanejad. According to Marco D'Amico, he quotes what he calls a trusted NHL source, saying that that source was telling him that Mika Zibanejad is also on the trade market, and that the Rangers have already had talks with the Western Conference team about moving Zibanejad. Now, Zibanejad has not had the best of starts this season. I think he's only got like 4 or 5 goals. He hasn't been that first-line center that he has been in the years past. Could the Rangers try and get a fresh start for Zibanejad? We've heard about Kreider, which was a surprise to me at least. We've heard about potentially Keandre Miller, which is also a surprise to me. Could Zibanejad be on the block too? I guess it's possible. He's a first-line center. He signed for the next 5 seasons at $8 million. I don't think they'd want to move him. Zibanejad's a really key piece of that team. But if they're already moving Kreider, could they potentially move Zibanejad? Like, they could get a really good return for Zibanejad. I could think like a first-round pick, solid prospect, probably an NHL level player too. So I think they could definitely get some really good assets if they were to move Zibanejad. Now, personally, I think they should probably try and keep Zibanejad, try and keep as much of this group together as you can. But if there's a team out there who could blow the socks off of the Rangers at the asking price, then maybe they move him. Zibanejad could potentially go somewhere. Now, this Western Conference team, not exactly sure which team could potentially be. We just talked about Dallas, Minnesota potentially being in the rumor mill for centers. There's probably a couple of other teams who know that Nashville was mentioned as wanting a center. Calgary's been mentioned as wanting a center. There's probably a couple of other teams in the West out too who wants a center. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. But according to Marco D'Amico, he's talked to an NHL source that says that Zibanejad's also on the trade market, and very likely they've already had trade talks with the Western Conference team. So I'll have to wait and see where that goes. And lastly, there was another report I've seen out there saying that the Rangers are interested in reacquiring Frank Vatrano. Vatrano helped the Rangers to the conference final a couple of years ago. He was a really great piece. I think it was like 2 years ago for the New York Rangers. They didn't have enough money to keep him, so he signed a 3-year deal in Anaheim. Well, he's now in the final year of that deal with AV of just over $3 million. It's not an overly expensive ad for the Rangers, and they just freed up $6.9 million in cap space. So I think the Rangers could pull off that sort of a deal. I think the Ducks are probably looking for like a second-round pick and a decent prospect. So the Rangers have enough decent prospects. I think they could try and swing that sort of a deal. Vatrano could fit in like the middle 6, and I think it could be a really good addition there for the Rangers. So we're gonna have to wait and see on that. But we know Vatrano is a very lucky trade candidate with him mentioned in final year of his deal on a low rebuilding team in Anaheim. And I think with the way Vatrano fit in a couple of years ago with the Rangers, I think that could be a really smart ad there for the Rangers if they were to go after him. So there's lots of interesting trade rumors from our past couple days. That's all I'm going to talk about. I left your guys' thoughts on all this down in the comment section below. But what do you think about the Rangers? Is there any potentiality they move Zibanejad? And what sort of Western Conference team could try and acquire him? Could they try and go after Frank Vatrano? What sort of return could Anaheim get? And do you think there's any sort of chance Brady Tkachuk could get moved to the Rangers? I personally have no doubt Tkachuk's going to remain with the Ottawa Senators, but I'd love to hear your other thoughts on all that. Do you think the Islanders could move Brock Nelson? If so, could Dallas or Minnesota be landing spots? And do you see Lauzon being moved by Nashville, or are they going to keep him? Love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Plus the waiver update, injury update, and signing for our past couple of days. Definitely love to hear your thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. So I'm going to talk about for today. Until this video, if you'd like to subscribe down below. Thank you for all your support. We're never to help you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget the subscribe button down below. Don't forget to comment down in the comment section below so you can also listen to this video. Also a blog, talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. I'll link down in the description below. Can't see you guys all for next video. See you guys soon.